Looks like they expect me to sit in their fancy chair. So what the hell? Go!
Make yourself ready, Pilgrim. The bindings are there as a safeguard.
No, no, God damn it!
Ascension. Ascension in the count of 5. Count of 4.
No.
3, 2, 1.
No!
Ascension. Ascension.
Just stay calm.
5,000 feet. 10,000 feet. 15,000 feet. Hallelujah.
Hey guys, this is Genefix coming to you from Rig for Epic, and this is my third video in the Bioshock series I've done. I've done two prior videos, one covering Bioshock 1 and the other one covering Bioshock 2. Both amazing games. I'd strongly recommend you go back and have a look at them if you haven't already. And that's kind of why I'm doing the videos, really, just to bring them to the attention of people who haven't played them before. This game is the third game. It's called Infinite, and it's based in a different place. So we head to the clouds in a city called Columbia, which is a floating city, so, you know, obviously everyday setting. And this game is actually set in 1912, which is quite a bit before the setting in Bioshock. There are links to the game, but to go into them in depth I would have to spoil the game, so I won't go into spoilers too much. Just to say that things aren't as black and white as they appear. So the story in a nutshell is you are Booker DeWitt. You've arrived in the city through extraordinary means. You're not really given a good handle on what's happening at the start, other than you're looking for a girl to wipe away the debt. That is your goal. And so the girl ends up being this extraordinary girl called Elizabeth, who is being captured and being held in this tower that you can see as you get to the city, and that is really all you know from the start. As you start to get towards the city, you start to make your way there. The city, at first, it feels kind of beautiful and serene. There's birds, like hummingbirds, coming up to you in the streets. You do get a really weird sequence at the start where you get baptized and then basically almost drowned. But after that, you start to think, oh, this is like a really pretty place. Like, the streets are all lined with trees. Everyone's like dressed up nice. There's like fairgrounds everywhere. But then once you start to peel back the veneer of this city, you start to see that there are lots of things wrong with this place.
But this one doesn't look clean to me.
You know, I thought I detected a hint of an accent from our way.
Good day, citizen. You're looking fit.
So once you've run through the introduction to the game, the actual gameplay starts proper, and you start to realise that even though this is a Bioshock game, things have started to be scaled back quite a bit in terms of how the game plays. The first two games felt like a very light RPG. You could change the way the weapons worked, you could change the way your powers worked, but in this game you seem to lose quite a lot of those options. So I'm not exactly sure what happened in the development process, but I do know that it was quite troubled, and the developers, they seem to have dithered between going one direction or another. Now, if you look at some of the early videos of the game being developed, there were parts of the gameplay where Elizabeth had way much more power. There's one scene where she is able to pick up all these molten pans and like mash them into a ball of molten metal and then throw them at the enemy. when we get to the gameplay that we actually got, there's none of that. So what Elizabeth actually can help you with, she can open these tears in reality, these rifts. So at certain parts in the level, you'll see a prompt, which is usually like a grey shimmering image of what you can call in. And then you can call in, say, like a medipack or a hook you can jump onto. You can call in certain resources. Some of these are quite well thought out, but most of them kind of get used quite a lot. And it starts to lose its appeal quite quickly. And I personally feel that they were going for much more of an ambitious game, and it's quite well known now that they were taking quite a long time. And eventually, the publishers started to put pressure on the developers, and they were put under a lot of pressure to get the game finished. And I personally think they just had to take what they developed so far, scale back a lot of their initial ambitions, and then unfortunately we got a very streamlined version of what their final vision was. So I think that's a real shame, because the early videos showed a lot of promise, and what we got was, I think, the most streamlined and pedestrian version of what could have been.
And now, the 1912 raffle has officially begun!
Mister!
Sorry, no sale.
Silly? There's never a charge for the raffle. You've been sleeping under a rock?
77.
77. That's a lucky number. I'll be rooting for you.
Bring me the bowl! Is that not the prettiest young white girl in all of Columbia? All right then. The winner is number 77!
Oh, what do you know?
Over here! He's the winner!
Number 77, come and claim your prize! First round!
It was me! It was all me! Please! Please! Please, what are you doing?
Come on! Are you gonna throw it? Or are you taking your coffee black these days?
I'm the one you want!
Oh! Looks like we've got a shy one here!
That's something for you.
We've got to do something. Wait! It's him!
Now, where'd you get that brand, boy? Don't you know that makes you the backstabbing snake in the grass false shepherd?
A false shepherd! And we ain't letting no false shepherd into our flock! Show them what we got planned, boys! Stop him! Stop him! The false shepherds come to lead us!
So guys, this is the part of the game where you start to be able to actually play fully, and the game starts proper. But before I just start talking about the actual gameplay, I just wanted to talk about the scene that we just watched, and it is very disturbing and upsetting to see that, but that is a general theme to Colombia. You see racism and bigotry and elitism pretty much everywhere. You see a section of the game where you walk into a building and there are toilets, and the black people are segregated to their own separate toilets, so it says whites only on the toilet. Now, I think this was quite a brave topic to broach by the developers, because obviously racism is very much a part of our history, and especially in the UK, I'm very aware of the racist parts of my country and the way that people of colour have been treated by my people in the past, and racism is still very much a part of our current time period. So this game, I'm just giving you a warning, this game might upset some people. It might make them feel really bad. So yeah, the game does approach it and deal with it. Now, whether you think it's dealt with well or not, that's up to you. but just to give you a heads up that it is in the game and it is a central theme to how Colombia works, and the people that live there, and especially the people who control Colombia, are most certainly racist and treat people like differently based on the colour of their skin. So, story theme aside, the actual gameplay, moment-to-moment gameplay in Infinite, is disappointingly simple, I think. Now, if I was to play this game in isolation, and I just picked it up, I didn't know anything about Bioshock, I just played this game on its own, I would have thought, great game, some really nice set pieces. There's some moments where you are like leaping from the skyhooks onto the ground, and all of that is quite exciting. But when you compare it to the first and second Bioshock, there's been so much taken out that it feels sparse, it feels empty to me, and I really wish they had either spent a bit more time fleshing it out with more systems, or not bothered at all, because to me it's quite depressing that the series may end on this note. Now, that's not to say that Infinite isn't a good game. It is a good game in isolation. You have access to weapons that are pretty fun to use. The first person combat is pretty cool. The weapons feel nice to shoot. The plasmids are interesting, the murder of crows and all the different ones you can use, but effectively they do a lot of the same things that the plasmids in Bioshock did. But even then, with the plasmids, which are called vigors in this game, they feel still kind of dumbed down from the versions you get in Rapture. Now, I've mentioned the skyhook, and that is something that makes Infinite feel, again, more different than the first two games. In Rapture, you felt like you were moving around, you were quite clunky, you couldn't move very fast, and so combat was more of a strategic thing where you had the plasmids, you had different systems walking around with the turrets and the spy cameras, making enemies fight for you, that kind of thing. Whereas Infinite feels far more like just like a standard FPS, and the skyhook is part of that because you can leap onto these skyhooks anytime, either the static ones that just allow you to kind of elevate yourself higher and then move across, or there's the moving ones where you can jump on and kind of move along like a train. If you press C, you can switch directions, you can leap onto different parts, and to be fair, they use this pretty well. Like, there are some levels where it's really fun to just fly around and use the skyhooks as combat assists, but again, once you get used to it, it is just another mechanic that I personally feel like they use that to fill in the blanks and cover for a game they really wanted to make. So there we go, guys. I'm going to wrap up this retro review of Bioshock Infinite pretty soon. I really enjoyed the game. Despite its flaws and its limitations, I think it's a very important part of the Bioshock series, just because it links the first two games to the DLC that you get with the game, Buried at Sea 1 and 2, which are way more important than what they first appear, but I will cover that shortly. But in terms of the Bioshock Infinite game itself, it's a good game. Like I said, it's a shame that we didn't get the full version of what they were planning to do. Based on the first early videos they put out, Ken Levine obviously had great ideas for this, and due to time or pressure, I mean, who knows, but they didn't really realise it fully, and I guess we'll never get that game now. Or maybe they'll put their ideas that they had for that into Judas, which is their new game they're bringing out soon. From what I can see from the trailers, that looks like a very ambitious game, and so maybe we'll get that game. But for now, guys, I'm going to move on to the DLC for Infinite, Buried at Sea Part 1 and 2. So here we go.
We're closed.
You don't look the sort who can afford to turn down legitimate work.
What do you want?
How about we start with a light?
Well, you got a name, miss?
Elizabeth. You can call me Elizabeth.
What can I do for you?
There's a girl who needs to be found. Maybe you've seen her.
So the strange thing about the DLC in Bioshock Infinite is that, in my opinion, it is way better than the actual game itself. And weirdly, I nearly didn't play the DLC. I mean, you know how it is. You buy a game, you enjoy the game, and then you get some tacked on DLC a couple of months later, like it happened with like the Far Cry games, and you play it and it's disappointing. It's tacked on. It's just a waste of time. It's just there to fill in a season pass or whatever. But once I actually sat down and played the DLC for Infinite, it occurred to me very quickly that this wasn't just like an extra couple of levels or the same game with an extra mission. This DLC was absolutely integral to the plot for all the games, really. And that's the surprising thing, is that when you play Bioshock 1 and 2 and then go to Infinite, you assume now you've left Rapture behind and you are in Columbia and that's going to be the rest of the game. And it kind of is. But then once you actually play the DLC, you realise that this actually starts to bring you back to Rapture. And not only that, but it actually tries to explain, and does explain in some ways, the connection between the two places. Now, you see similar technology with the vigors and the plasmids, the way some of the vending machines work, some of the inventions, some of the themes to Rapture and Columbia are very similar. But in terms of the actual geographical location of the places and the people that started them, they're in a different time period and they're in a different place. So as you start to go through this DLC, you will start to realise that there is a definite link between some of the people here and there. Now you might start to ask yourself, well, how is that possible? One's based in the 1950s and one's based in 1912. But then you realise that Elizabeth can do what she can do. She can not only open tears to different places, she can also enter these folds and enter different time periods. And so you start to realise that combined with her, and you've also got the Lattès twins, you've got a very definite way of getting around that in terms of the plot. Now, as important as the story and the plot goes, a lot of people will be asking, what's the actual gameplay like? Well, I think you can kind of split it into two parts. Each Burial at Sea Part 1 and 2 have two different characters. So in the first DLC, you play as Booker DeWitt, and then in the second one, you play as Elizabeth herself. And then in each one, there's kind of like an introductory part of the DLC where you're walking around, you're talking to different characters, and you're just getting to enjoy the fact you're back in Rapture. And it's so cool to be able to see Rapture kind of before the fall, before it all like broke apart and everything went to shit. So once you get past that initial part, you start to unlock new weapons again. Now, one difference is that when you start to collect weapons as Booker DeWitt in the Part 1, you actually can carry more than one weapon. More than two weapons, which is something I didn't like about Infinite. And you start to pick up the odd plasmid. And something occurred to me actually, is that the confinement and the claustrophobia you feel in Rapture was actually one of the things that made the game so good in Bioshock 1 and 2. You felt like you were being like pressured by everything around you, whereas in Infinite you're like up in the clouds and you're on sky rails like traveling around. Now weirdly, that they've included some of these sky rail elements into the DLC. Now to me it doesn't make any sense because obviously these weren't in the original two games. But I guess when you've got these infinite universes, you can kind of see where things might cross over. So I guess if you really wanted to explain it, that's why. But yeah, there are sections of this DLC where you're inside Rapture on sky rails. A very small sky rail, but they are there. And it's kind of fun, but it feels a bit weird to be like splicing that in between the two games. So yeah, ultimately both games have an interesting conclusion, and the second game, especially when you're playing as Elizabeth, there's one sequence where you meet Fontaine, which is one of the best sequences in all of the games. It's tense, it's kind of like cringy. It's not in a bad way. It's like oh yeah, well you'll see if you play it. And then the ultimate conclusion to the DLC, once you actually go to a certain place, it really does explain so many parts of all of the games in a way that you never thought possible. And there we go, guys. That's the end of my 3-part Bioshock series. I covered Bioshock 1, Bioshock 2, and Bioshock Infinite. And of course, I've managed to squeeze on the all-important DLC at the end of this video. So, thank you for watching my videos. If you have, I would love it if you would leave some feedback. Maybe subscribe and leave a like if you did like the videos. And if you didn't like the videos, obviously leave a dislike and comments why. I'm accepting all feedback. I know I'm new to this, as you can probably tell. So yeah, I'm just enjoying the process, and it's great to be able to talk about video games as much as I like writing about them. This is a really interesting process. So I will hopefully see you on the next video. Take care, guys. Bye bye.